hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. Truly appreciate you being here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Of course, Cafe Kubal located for you on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse. They're also located on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners for their drive-through location in North Syracuse. And, of course, you could find them on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, in their giant behemoth of a brown-striped building. It looks like coffee being poured, and they have an expanded parking lot out there now, so you can go enjoy that today. So make sure you check out Cafe Kubal and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you their way, and appreciate it, as always, you going out to Cafe Kubal and supporting local. With that being said, we have a trio of guests on today's broadcast to start off our week. First and foremost, I want to wish everybody once again a very happy Memorial Day. I have a lot of family members that have been inside of the military, be it the Air Force, the Army, or the Navy. We've had family in all three. So I do want to send my prayers, my well wishes, and my love to all the families that have had someone in any one of the armed forces, as well as the fact of I do want to share my support, my love for those families that have had a loved one pass away who gave up their life for the ultimate price. And so our prayers go out to you. We thank you. We appreciate you for your service. We can't say enough about what you do for us, but we can most certainly make sure that we honor you as often as we can and as positively as we can. So that needs to be said first and foremost. And a big shout out to my grandfathers, as well as my great uncle Pat, my great uncle Carmen, my great uncle Vincent, my great uncle Bucky. To all of you, thank you for all that you've done to support and to give. And many of my family in World War II, and they all made it back home safe. And not everybody can say that. So our positive words and thoughts go out to all the families that are mourning a loved one, and we thank you and we thank them for all that they've done, and know that they're watching over us from heaven. With that being said, inside of these Cafe Kubal studios, our trio of guests today inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. We'll start off the show with Marcus Sales. Marcus Sales, an alum of CBA as well as the Syracuse Orange. We'll hear from Marcus Sales in just a second here. Then we'll continue our Commissioner Central series with commissioners and executive directors from all over the country giving me their thoughts on their strength of their conference, the evolution of their specific conference, and then a grander look at the overall world of collegiate athletics, the future of college athletics in the NCAA, name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal. We'll be joined by Mike Aresco in the back half of this first hour of the show from the American Athletic Conference in a video special. And then we'll be joined in the second hour from the Big Sky Conference. And Tom Wistrcill will be telling us his thoughts on his conference as well as the future of collegiate athletics. So with all of that being said, I give a proud welcome to Marcus Sales coming on to the broadcast. Marcus is somebody that I covered when he was at Syracuse, and it's been a long time since I've been able to say this name on the show, and I'm so grateful that he's given me the opportunity to do that. So with that being said, let's bring him in. Marcus, how are we doing today?
I'm good. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing very well, Marcus. And first and foremost, I mean, we both went to the same school, Christian Brothers Academy in DeWitt, New York, your alma mater. You and I were talking off the air a little bit about your connection to them and just what you can say about how connected you try to stay with Christian Brothers Academy.
I definitely try to stay connected with most of the guys. We had a good group when I was there, so I try to keep in touch with a lot of the guys. A lot of guys getting married right now, so we got a couple of weddings coming up this year.
And, you know, when you stay connected with these guys, what can you say about maybe some of the people that from Christian Brothers Academy that had the biggest influence on you, most positive impact in your life?
I only speak well about those guys. Coach Leon, I still talk to him a lot. Coach W, Coach Joffrey, and Bruce and LeVar. Those guys, they helped me out a lot when I chose to go to Syracuse. So I try to keep in contact with all those guys.
Now, I know that Bruce is somebody that I've stayed connected with here over the years, and I know when he saw you were coming on the show, he was happy about that. So what can you say about Bruce Williams?
He's a tremendous guy, man. He knows his craft, and as you can see, they won the state championship last year. I can only say good things about Bruce.
And for you, Marcus, when you look back on your time at Christian Brothers Academy, what is it about CBA that you feel helped your game, helped to improve who you are as a player and who you are off the field as well?
I mean, just the relationships that you build at CBA, the academic preparation. Mr. Keel is doing a great job over there. My son actually went there for seventh grade, so I was around CBA a lot. So it's just tremendous atmosphere at CBA.
And when you talk about your son going there and being able to play before you all moved down to the California or the Carolina area and North Carolina here and in just outside of Charlotte, what is it about, why did you want your son to go to Christian Brothers Academy? They affected your life personally, but what did they do to make you want to have the next of kin go to CBA?
For me personally, it was just the relationships. You know what I mean? I wanted him to have that same experience that I had. And I think it's probably the best school in Syracuse area. And the alumni group that they have, I just think it's very important for you to be around people like that and just build relationships.
What do you think he got from it?
He got a lot. I mean, he had to get used to. Well, he went to Blessed Sacrament, and he was used to wearing like a polo shirt. But him dressing up, learning how to tie a tie at a young age, I think it helps him with discipline and everything.
So, I mean, you break it down to, learning how to tie a tie and how to be a gentleman and that side of it, I mean, you could have easily gone to the side of athletics and the success of Christian Brothers Academy, but you went to the side of, building a man. What made you say that more than anything else?
I mean, I think that's just the most important thing because at one time, sports would be over, and it's all about being a man and making the right choices and taking care of your family. So I'm more leaning that way. Sports will take care of itself as long as you put in the work.
Speaking here with Marcus Sales on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Marcus, when you look at your journey that went from CBA to Syracuse, you and I were talking about that a bit off the air as well. Just what you could say about the decision to go to Syracuse and just what it means to you, maybe hindsight 2020.
I mean, I think it was at the time that I chose Syracuse, they weren't doing too good. So I just thought that I could help out the program and Avon Collier. We had talked a lot, and we just made the decision that we would go there together.
And when you look back on it, what are maybe your fondest moments of Syracuse? Would you choose it again?
Definitely would choose it again. My best game was probably the Pinstripe Bowl when I scored 3 touchdowns and we beat Kansas State. So memories like that, I mean, those don't go away. And I built a whole bunch of relationships with guys that I played with throughout the years that we still keep in contact with. So I think that was like the most important thing about me going to Syracuse.
And your numbers only rose when you were at Syracuse, Marcus. We look at, your first season in 2008, and you had 160 yards and 1 touchdown. Year 2, 2009, you had 324 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Then you had 414 yards, 4 touchdowns. Your last season in 2012, 882 yards and 8 touchdowns. What can you attribute to the fact that you were steadily on the incline at Syracuse?
I mean, we had different offensive coordinators, so I think that has something to do with it. We had 3 different offensive coordinators while I was there. So that definitely has something to do with it. But, I mean, over the years, I learned how to work my body and take care of my body. I got faster, I got stronger, and I was able to – we had a good group of guys also. So it made it easy for me, having a quarterback like Ryan Nassib and things like that. So
I was at that Pinstripe Bowl and in that game, and it was fantastic. To go back to those days and – go back to Yankee Stadium and whatnot. Like you said, that was probably your best game. Getting to a bowl game, like you said, you came to Syracuse when the team wasn't doing that well, and you helped a hopeful resurgence there, right? You were there with Doug Marrone and company, and there was a lot of hope from that era, the Doug Marrone era. So what can you say about that, about being a part of the last 20 years of Syracuse football where we saw a rise, we saw an uptick? What does that mean to you when you look back on it, that there were so many kind of tumultuous and tough years, adversity, and then we saw during your time there that Syracuse actually started to look better, stronger, and to be a threat to teams out there like Kansas State.
I mean, it means a lot to me. Just being a part of those group of guys that basically faced all that adversity, and everybody counted us out. I mean, we had those summers where we were just sweating, and we didn't know what to expect with the new coaching staff. So we all bought into each other and bought in, and everything worked out for the better.
What can you say about that coaching staff? I mean, obviously, a good friend of mine, Nate Hackett, is now the head coach of the Denver Broncos. We've seen Doug Marrone go back to the NFL, and most recently he was the offensive line coach with Nick Saban in Alabama, who made it into the college football playoff once again and duked it out for a championship. So what can you say about that staff and what that staff has meant to you, and do you have close relationships with anybody still?
I mean, you said it all right there. I mean, those guys, they always been around the game. They played the game. I had Rob Moore as my coach, so yeah. He was a Pro Bowler, Tyrone Wheatley. It was just a blessing to be around those guys and learn from those guys. And I feel like it was like you can't ask for a better staff than that, actually.
So looking back on Syracuse, you're one of the few people that has been recruited locally, and that's something that's always a big part of my show, is stating that Central and Upstate New York athletes are good. These student, I mean, not only are they good students, but they're good athletes, and there is value here. There are, I don't even want to call them diamonds in the rough. There's people that don't get the respect that they deserve, and they could come from Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Watertown. But they're here, and they're in this community. They've been sought out. The Derek Gores that went off to Alabama, the Latavius Murrays that went off to UCF, you going to Syracuse. We've seen the Stevie Scotts go to Indiana. We've seen the Servassier Dennises still out there at Pittsburgh. There's been so much talent that has come through. Dorsey Levens from Nottingham, and just what he's been able to do and how successful he's been, and then go off to win a Super Bowl. So there's been a lot of talent in this community, but I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. What can you say about Central and Upstate New York, and do you feel like they deserve more attention?
Yeah, I absolutely, definitely think they deserve a lot more attention. I think it's like total disrespect not to recruit in your backyard, and then you see these guys go off and be successful and get ready for the NFL or the next level. I think it's very important to invest in your area, just to let the fans know you're invested in the area and build a local network with the coaches. And I think it's very important to recruit in the backyard because we have a lot of talent in upstate New York.
And when you see that talent and you see it go elsewhere, right? It goes to, Colorado's recruiting, the Big Ten recruits upstate New York and central New York heavily. We've seen, going off to Alabama, like I mentioned, going to BC, really wherever Steve Adazio is. Now he's at Texas A&M. So, some of these coaches out there, Randy Edsel when he was at UConn, there's certain coaches that always kept a connection there. Paul Pasqualoni when he was out there doing his thing collegiately, so to not have this school that's right there. I mean, your alma mater, you went to Syracuse from CBA. You know that if you rode a bike, it would take you maybe 10 minutes to get to Manly. So to know that there's such a lack of recruiting between Syracuse and CBA, Syracuse and Central and Upstate New York, how do you feel about it personally as somebody who was in Central New York, played at CBA, went down the road to Syracuse? How much does it affect you personally that that's really not a thing anymore?
I mean, I really don't like it because me personally, I have personal relationships with some of the coaches, and I talk to them about it, and it's just total disrespect. It's like I heard that the coaches don't go out and watch any of the high school games or anything like that, and you got a state championship team basically 5 minutes down the street from you. I mean, it's total disrespect. I don't like it at all, personally.
Well, one of the things that was really hard for me to hear, I was in the press conference sitting right in front of him when he said it, and I have a good relationship with Dino. And Dino decided to listen, he told the truth, which is great because I think you should always tell the truth. It was just the truth kind of hurt in this situation when he was asked the question by somebody in the room, did you go out to a high school game this year? What'd you think or whatever? And he said, I have not been to one local game all year. And I sat there and I thought to myself, Christian Brothers Academy played in the sectional championship in the Dome, which is where you work. Then they came back for the state championship in the Dome, which is where you work. And the Maine Endwells and the Shenango Forks and all these teams that I cover were there in the Dome. They came to you from the Southern Tier, Binghamton area and whatnot. And I just remember thinking to myself, you didn't go see the games that were in the Dome. Not even for 5 minutes. And that resonated with me. It stayed with me like soot. And it just, I don't know what to say. When a coach can come out and say, I haven't seen a single local game all year long, and then just carry on. And I'm thinking, even if you haven't, probably not something you should tell the community.
Definitely. You got to show the fans you're invested in the area. We're putting out guys in Pittsburgh, Central Florida. D. Gore is holding it down in the NFL right now with Kansas City. It's a lot of guys out there that I believe definitely could have played at Syracuse. So it's definitely a slap in the face for us locally. And we should take it personal.
Yeah, and for you to do what you've done and to wear that as a badge of honor, to be one of the local players that went to Syracuse, do you feel like you need to be a beacon of hope for the kids in Central and Upstate New York? Do you want to reach out? Do you want to stay connected? I know you're down in North Carolina now, but do you take it upon yourself to say, hey, listen, I got recruited to go to Syracuse. For whatever reason, they're not doing that with you guys now, but I'm here for you. Do you want to be a resource for them?
Absolutely. I think it's my job, my duty to, help out the youth and be a positive role model for those guys. Just going through the whole process of being a big recruit out of CBA and having to choose a college and making the right decision. I definitely would love to help the youth.
Coming here from Marcus Sales, CBA and Syracuse alum. Marcus, before I let you go, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the CBA Football studios, we've all faced adversity. We all go through tough times. The student athletes today have a lot of challenges. There's a lot of things going on. There's NIL, there's the transfer portal. There are essentially a kid doesn't have to be responsible anymore. They can continue. If there's competition, they can run away from it. NIL side of it, there's people that could abuse it, right? It's good that a student athlete can make money off their name, image, and likeness since the NCAA makes billions off of it. But you have to be around the right people. You have to be trained the right way. And different schools are going to do different things. Some schools might be hands-off. Some schools might be hands-on. There might be classes. Other schools might just not care at all. So when you look at adversity, the adversity you went through growing up obviously didn't include all of this. But what can you say about adversity and what's maybe some advice you would give to the kids?
Sometimes you get knocked down. It's all about how you respond. You got to stay around positive people and keep a positive mindset. And don't think about what happened yesterday. You can move forward. It's never over. That's my mindset. So, I'm doing very well, and I can't complain about anything. So my advice is just stay around good people and just keep your head on straight.
There's life after football. You're living it. How would you describe this new chapter of your life?
I love it. My son is going into 9th grade. He's actually going to the same high school as Wendell Moore from Duke. So I'm excited to see what he does next year at the high school level. And I'm invested in him. So I'm going to make sure that he works his tail off.
And your son is playing basketball and football. You and I were talking about that fact. Is there a hope he could get recruited for both? How do you see it?
He got a lot of work to do, but I think he can definitely play at the next level, whether it's D1, D2. I think he can definitely play at the next level. We're just working, hopefully, that he gets a scholarship and gets a great education.
Coming from Marcus Sales. Marcus, you brought it up. Final point here. Christian Brothers Academy, your alma mater, just won a state championship for Class A. I was on the field for that moment. A very proud and exciting kind of. Still to this day, I don't have words for that. It was something special to hug Casey Brown and to go and see the guys and be able to talk with them and see this moment and celebrate with them and continue to do so. So what can you say about seeing your alma mater win a state title? It's been a minute, and to do something like this is obviously a monumental moment for Christian Brothers Academy and for the community in Syracuse.
I mean, it's great. It's great to see Bruce get another state championship and be a part of it. I got nothing but belief in the CBA system and what they got going on up there. So hopefully they can do it again next year.
I got to ask you this. We do a thing called rapid fire, and normally we jump out of sports, but I want to rapid fire this thing into sports a little bit too. So I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you, and you're just going to give me the first answer on your mind. And then in respect of fairness, I'm going to let you give me 3, and you can ask me anything in the world, and I have to answer it. All right, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to hit you with mine first. Best wide receiver of NFL history.
Randy Moss.
Okay. Favorite opponent to face when you were in the Big East with Syracuse?
West Virginia.
Favorite game, you said Kansas State. Would you say that's your favorite overall game when you were there?
Yeah, my favorite overall game. It was pretty cool, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Teammate that you would spend 24 hours in a car with from CBA?
Probably Dan Sisto.
Okay. Teammate you would do that with at Syracuse?
Antoine Bailey.
All right. I like that. Best thing about being a father?
Just seeing the growth.
All right. Fair enough. And I'll throw you with one more. You could pick one food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can pick something for breakfast, something for lunch, something for dinner, all different, but you got to eat them for the rest of your life. Give me your meals for the day.
Breakfast, eggs. Could it be more than one, or?
Yeah, you can, whatever you want breakfast
Eggs
to
and
be.
bacon for breakfast.
Okay.
Lunch, probably curry chicken, and dinner, maybe spaghetti.
All right, fair enough. Favorite restaurant in Syracuse?
Francesca's.
All right, good choice. All right, so now 3 from you to me. We have not talked about this, folks. This is live and in the moment. I have to answer these, so go ahead.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I genuinely listen to everything. I listen to, I would say my favorites are R&B, hip-hop, country, and probably classic rock. So is that your first question, or is there a question off of that?
Nah, just my first question.
Okay, what's your second one?
All right, so where would you go if you could pick a vacation to go right now, if you could just up and leave?
I could go right now. I'll go somewhere I've never been. I would go to Spain and Italy to see my family. I would also go to Hawaii, or as my fiance just brought up, she wants to go to Bora Bora. So I guess we would test that out. She was showing me that yesterday.
Bora Bora is definitely on the list.
All right, yeah.
Last one. I can't think of a good last one.
Anything in the world.
If you could leave Syracuse, where would you go to live right now?
If I could leave Syracuse, where would I go to live right now? That is a great question. My second home is Florida, so it's the second home for me personally. I have family down there. My best friend's down there. My nieces are down there. So 2 of my nieces are down there. So I would say Florida, definitely. And ironically, since we're on the phone, I also consider North Carolina to be a place that I would maybe go to someday.
Perfect. That's a good choice.
So with that being said, Marcus Sales here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Catching up with Marcus and getting to see how he's doing these days. Marcus, I appreciate it because obviously a big fan of you while you were at Syracuse and beyond, and genuinely wanted the best for you there and beyond that and after that. So the fact that we got to catch up here today and you allowed me the opportunity to do it, Really means a lot to me, and I look forward to keeping in touch, and I'd love to have you back on the show soon.
Thank you. No problem.
All right, give my best to your son, and be safe in all your travels this summer. I hope you all win some games, and just make sure you have fun out there.
I will do.
All right, take care.
Yeah, me too.
See you. That coming from Marcus Sales one more time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. With that being said, we're going to take a step aside for a fast break from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Cafe Kubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse. Inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital in downtown, in 343 Fayette Street, Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse, New York, for their drive-through location. With that being said, we will take a step aside and come back to continue hour number 1 and continue our Commissioner Central series, heading to our video with the Commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, Mr. Mike Aresco, who is here to join us for our Commissioner Central series, which centers on the strength and evolution of each commissioner and executive director's individual conference, followed by their thoughts on name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, and the future of collegiate athletics. All of that's coming up with the American Athletic Conference and Mike Aresco, its commissioner, right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Leaders from around the country, and one that is definitely no stranger to the broadcast is American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Aresco, who is here with us today in a very special Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora conversation. You're watching and listening on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and you're listening worldwide on mixlr.com/WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. Mr. Aresco, how are we doing?
How are you, Dan? I see the bright sun. You know, it's definitely a wake up. I don't think I was up early enough to see the sunrise, but nevertheless, it looks great. No, great to be with you, Dan, as usual. It's been a little while since you and I have had a chance to talk. Been a busy time. We're getting ready for annual meetings. You know, you've seen that all the conferences are having their annual meetings around now, and it's been pretty busy, but you know, everything's fine. Thank you.
So, I mean, to kind of just jump right into that, what are the talking points of this year when it comes to the annual meetings? What's on the docket that you can let us know as far as, you know, what the focus is? Because there's a lot of things going on with collegiate athletics, but on top of all that, there's those going out and those coming in to the American Athletic Conference. So what are the annual meetings really going to center around for you?
It's a really good question, Dan. Well, we have our normal business where, you know, we go through scheduling. We have to think about the future. We don't know yet when the 3 exiting schools are going to go because we haven't worked out a settlement yet, and we may not. But we're talking about future football and basketball scheduling. We are looking at various officiating issues. We always have a review of our budget and our finances, which have been very healthy in this league, even with the pandemic. So those kinds of things have to be addressed. But this year, when we have our joint session with our presidents and ADs, we'll probably focus more on what I call global issues, and that is, you know, the transformation committee's work, where is college sports going, NIL, the transfer portal, and also should FBS football be separate from the NCAA? What's the future of the NCAA? How should the enforcement function be handled? I mean, those are pretty significant issues. You know what's going on in college sports right now. I think the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher thing is it's good entertainment and all, but the issue is the issue. I mean, it is pay for play right now. I mean, it's just a different form of pay for play, and we all kind of know it. And that, is one of the things that we're trying to tackle. No pun intended. So the agenda is really going to focus on once we get into our overall discussion. Where do we want to be on this? Where do we think it's going? Are we going to accept some form of pay for play? There's another movement afoot, of course, that, to pay players, officially, California, they didn't pass a law saying that a certain percentage of money had to go to players. It ended up dying, but it could come back next year. And the other issue, of course, is unionization. There are some states that want to see college athletes unionized. Is there some way we can collectively, get together and maybe work with Congress or, and avoid lawsuits and try to work out something collectively without making our student athletes employees and without, creating unions, which cause all sorts of issues. That's another issue that we're going to be talking about. Where do we want to be? Where as a conference do we want to be on this? As commissioner, I have my own ideas, but, you don't want to be ahead of your group. You don't want to be going out there and talking about things that they're not comfortable with or that they don't agree with. So we'll have some we'll have some pretty great discussions. Now, we have Troy Dannon, one of our ADs, is on the NCAA Transformation Committee. And I'm sure you probably talked about it with your listeners and viewers. But that's really where we are, and that's what will be discussed.
Yeah, and all of these things that are going on right now with the NCAA, it's interesting what you said, because I made a statement about 5 years ago on the show, and I said 5 to 10 years from now, so we're right here at that window. I said if the NCAA keeps going the way it's going, we will either not know them the way that we used to know them because they'll look different, or they may not exist at all. You just talked about the FBS. Does it even need to be a part of the NCAA? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, Mark Emmert is going to be stepping down shortly as president of the NCAA. He said during the pandemic that he has no control. There is no czar of football. He essentially rendered himself powerless to college football. And to fans, they think, okay, well, if it's the NCAA Division I, II, and III, then it's under the NCAA, obviously, because that's what it says. It says NCAA D1, II, and III. Well, he said, I can't tell a conference or a school whether or not they can play. And people kind of took a step back and said, well, what does that mean? So where is college football right now? And do you see it functioning outside of the NCAA?
It seems, Dan, that there's a fairly, I don't know if it's strong yet, but a growing movement in that direction. The idea that if football really is a different, animal, it just is. It's just different. in terms of the amount of revenue it brings in terms of the impact it has, in terms of the, what goes into it. And I think the feeling is growing that maybe football just needs to be separate, that FBS, for example, needs to be separate. FBS needs to set its own rules without having to worry about input from those who may not really experience what we experience, or who don't have the same issues. And this is where I don't see, Dan, a break off of the 5 conferences, for example. And you could argue now it's the big 2, right? Or you could argue 4. You could argue a lot of things, right? You could argue 6, that we should be there too. But the point is, it's FBS. And I think in the room, there's a cohesiveness about FBS. No matter what FBS conference you're in, you share the same issues that the others. Yes, the Big Ten and SEC have more money, but they play the same brand of football we do. They're student athletes. We had 2 first-round draft picks this year, right? One so-called P5 conference didn't have any. We had 10 draft picks in the first 3 rounds. There were a couple of P5 conferences that only had 7. We play the same brand of football. We have the same issues. And even though we don't generate as much revenue, we generate a lot of revenue, and it's just different. It's different than Division I. And as chair of the Conference Commissioners Association, I see the difference in those meetings. Now, I'm not necessarily campaigning for this at this point, but sitting in the room with the commissioners and talking about this, you can just get a feeling that maybe it's something that's going to get a pretty fair hearing. The other issue is, okay, well, then what do you do with basketball? What do you do with Olympic sports? What do you do with enforcement? The NCAA operationally does a very good job with those events and could continue to do that. The NCAA seems to have kind of abandoned, a lot of the areas that it used to get involved in. And it's clear we're all pretty, I wouldn't say paranoid, but we're all worried about antitrust, and we've got to deal with that. And one of the ways you deal with it is to, deregulate and let things devolve to the conferences and to the schools as much as you can. But what you don't want is Wild West. And there's a balancing act, and is Congress ultimately going to get involved? I've been pretty skeptical, but it's always possible that, you got an election coming in the fall. And once that's over with, you never know. You might be able to, but I think we're the ones that have to come up with the plan. I think that's why these annual meetings for a lot of conferences, and definitely for ours, are more important than they've been in terms of the global issues. We have to drive it, and then I think try to engage Congress rather than say, Congress, you handle it, you deal with it. Well, they're not going to on their own, or they're going to want to control college sports, which I don't think is a good thing for anyone. So that's where I see it going. I think there's going to be a robust, I know that term's overworked, but there'll be a robust discussion about what's going to happen with FBS football, but also NIL and the transfer portal, more of the year in residency going away, have created a perfect storm. How are you going to get your hands around that if you ever are? I mean, it's paper play. Now, these new rules, that say donors can't have contact, well, you take a pretty dumb donor to get ensnared in that now, right? The donor don't have to do anything. All I have to do is contribute the money to the collective. And the coach can say to the player, look, you come to our school, you're going to do great. We got a great collective. We've got people that, want to do NIL deals, and there's, what's to stop them from doing that? And so I'm not really sure that there's any enforcement anymore about this, and it is clearly pay for play. Is there some way you can have a fair market value attached to these so-called endorsement deals that might limit some of the real tremendous abuse with payments that have nothing to do with NIL? I'll close this part of the segment, Dan, by saying I'm not even sure we should be talking about NIL anymore. I'm not sure it is NIL. NIL is when you try to leverage your name, image, and likeness, which very few student athletes can do, even in their own communities. People don't know who they are. But that's fine if they can. And we probably should have loosened that up years ago, even though we were worried about the abuses that could follow, right? The $10,000 autograph or the, whatever. So we didn't loosen things up. We probably should have. But now the question becomes, well, why are we even calling it NIL? This has nothing to do with NIL. It has to do with recruiting and retention. So, okay, let's say you develop some way to collectively deal with paying players, or however you want to do it. And that's the other thing. You got to decide whether you really are going to embrace paying players. But let's assume you can figure out something. Well, NIL's still out there separately. It's not going away. And so you're going to have money coming from different directions, and where does it end? Now, I know some of the coaches have said this isn't sustainable. I don't necessarily buy that. I think it is sustainable. If these donors want to keep collectives going year after year, why can't they? The money maybe used to go to facilities and to other things, and to nutritional programs, and to Olympic sports, and to, fields and scoreboards and everything you can imagine. That money now may just go to, to recruiting players, by virtue of NIL deals. I don't know. Maybe the money will still flow in even greater numbers, and will fans embrace this, Dan? I don't know. I have no idea. You talk to fans, your show appeals to fans. I don't know how they're going to view all this, and you're not going to know in a year or two. I mean, this is a long-term kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think you bring up great points, and two things I want to get to: NIL and transfer portal, and what that's doing to the American athletic, what it's doing to college athletics in general, creating the fact that you can go and you can go to any team you want. You don't have to sit out a year. You can go in conference. You can leave Tulane and go to Tulsa. You can leave, Navy and go over to Memphis. I mean, it's the control used to be with the coaches. Now that control has moved to the players, but it's two extremes, right? We've gone from one extreme to another. We've gone from not giving student athletes any money to now they could sign an endorsement deal for $1 million. And what does that do? And what does that mean? And who regulates that? And are they paying taxes on it? And who's helping them with that? So there's a lot of questions. And you brought up Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. I know that the SEC had reprimanded both. How would you handle this as a commissioner if one of your coaches publicly defamed another coach and accused them of something that broke not only college athletic laws, but also state laws? Would you allow the other coach to defend themselves? Do you bring them both into a room? I mean, what do you do in a situation? Because this is a unique situation that we're seeing, but they both got reprimanded. And in my, I've interviewed them both. I've been around Nick Saban. I've been around Jimbo Fisher. In my world, if I was Jimbo, I would have felt like I should at least say something in defense of myself. How do you handle that?
Well, and I'm not giving advice, to people. You could argue, I suppose, that Nick didn't, accuse anybody of doing anything illegal, but he took a shot at A&M, which may or may not have been accurate. Okay, you may recall years ago, Rick Barnes and Dean Smith were kind of getting into it, and Gene Corrigan called them both in and had a face-to-face meeting with them. If that happened in my conference, and fortunately it hasn't happened, I would probably be inclined, just me, to bring them in, to bring them both in and say, look, Commissioner, I want to talk to both of you. Let's see if we can't, work this out. You want comedy if possible. You want collegiality, no pun intended, if possible. You don't want these things to escalate. And my guess is they won't, we'd have to look at our sportsmanship. We have sportsmanship rules, and I don't know whether this, I haven't really looked at that part of it as to whether we'd be issuing reprimands or anything of that nature. It would depend on the facts. You never know what the fact situation is. It's really up to the SEC. This isn't really our business. It's really up to the SEC. But I remember Gene did do that, and I think it probably did calm things down. But I'm not, I can't give advice, and every conference is different. Every conference has a different dynamic. Conferences have had scheduling issues between schools. Remember some of those hurricane pre-schedulings, we did it a certain way. Other conferences had to do it a certain way. So there's always a difference. But again, I think that's almost a sideshow in terms of what's really going on, because the real issues are, how do you deal with this Wild West? And by the way, the Wild West may have had more protocols than we have now. I mean, Yeah, they may have had some unwritten rules that everybody abided by. I don't know. We don't have anything right now. Again, I think that, there's that old saying, if something can't continue, it won't. And this is sustainable in terms of the money flowing in, but the model might not really be sustainable in the sense that something's got to give. We've got to get a handle on this. Everybody wants to get a handle on this. And I'm not out there accusing kids of being greedy and if you've got this system,
Yeah.
and you're a student athlete, young kid, why wouldn't you take advantage of it, right? The problem is you don't want it to be corrupting, though. This is, we never really won the PR battle, Dan. And when I say PR battle, these kids get a full scholarship. They get out debt free. To get a really good college education, if you care about that, and if it sets you up for life, you get contacts in your community that you would never have had otherwise. You get the benefit of these great stadiums, great coaching. Some will make the pros, most won't. But you also get cost of attendance now. You get counseling. You get nutritional programs that would be the envy of any student on campus. You get all sorts of benefits that we've never really articulated. On top of this now, this notion that you're almost like an employee, right? This is voluntary in the sense that you could go to a G League, right? You could go to I think some of these new football leagues will probably take kids right away, right? I don't know. You don't have to do this. And so I think we lost that battle. We couldn't convince people that this was a good deal for student athletes, that they weren't exploited.
Yeah.
The billions had something to do with it. There's a lot of money floating around, but a lot of it gets plowed right back in to all the things you need, the facilities and everything else. The other thing, Dan, the last thing on this one is the issue of coaching salaries has been our Achilles heel, and their move. The fact that they can move, kids couldn't. They get all this money. ADs, commissioners now make more than they used to. And everybody says, "Well, wait, the kids aren't getting any money. They're the ones doing this." Well, maybe I'm from an archaic era. I grew up. I played high school football, and you did it for the love of the game, your school, participating. Just the idea that you could participate and make a team and do this was terrific. Maybe that's really an archaic notion now, but the truth is, things have changed dramatically, and we're going to have to either adapt. Either you're going to have some kind of modified pay-for-play model, which is loosely tethered to education, or some schools, Jack Swarbrick talked about this. I mean, we've been talking about it for months, really. I remember talking about it with Mark Emmert, what's going to happen months ago, what's going to happen. Some schools may want to really embrace the amateur model and probably could do it if their student athletes wanted them to do it. Others would have to move toward this modified pay-for-play. The only issue right now is, can you put some work? Can you organize it? Can you put some, rules in there that make some sense and avoid getting sued all the time? That's why I've been skeptical about Congress. But on the other hand, I do think that Congress might have a role if we take the initiative and come up with reasonable pro-competitive rules that maybe on their own could withstand antitrust scrutiny, but also get the help of Congress. We'll see. You have an election coming up, and I think before an election, very little gets done, as you know. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and 2 quick points here. One coming off of what you just said. To take a look at where we stand in all of this, there was a question that was asked, did anybody see this coming? Did anybody think it was going to be this bad? And I very easily raised my hand, and I've been talking about this with you, and I've been talking about this on the show since the beginning of it all. It's not whether or not you should find a way to do right by the student athletes. It's the fact that there has been no rules and no regulations and very little to keep this from being free agency and pay for play. Why are people surprised that this is a giant you-know-what show? I mean, I don't understand why people are going, wait a minute, how come it didn't just figure itself out?
Yeah, no one should be surprised at all. In fact, several years ago in conference commissioner meetings, we were talking about this very thing. When California passed that law, we knew that it could lead to chaos. And not just because 50 states would all jump in and have their own laws, but we knew at the time that this would become a recruiting tool, a retention tool, that it wasn't really NIL. Because the truth is, how many student athletes, especially football players, have the ability to cash in on NIL. Maybe Trevor Lawrence when he was playing, maybe a few other guys. How many can even name some of these top players? How many can name a top wide receiver? How many can name any lineman at all or a defensive back? How many people can name even a star quarterback, even a Heisman Trophy winner? A lot of people can't necessarily name. Okay, they have some value in NIL, but it's not what's going on now. We all predicted this. This is a very obvious result of what has happened. Not a surprise at all. The question is, it happened quickly? Yeah, that's not a surprise either, because, donors were just, chomping at the bit. They want to have good teams, right? They want to get the best players. They figured out quickly. Now, maybe what we didn't see is the collectives forming so quickly, right? That was something that happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't see this going to pay for play immediately, although, to be honest, that was probably predictable. I'm not sure there's any part of this that we didn't, necessarily, foresee. Other than the collectives, which formed very quickly, I'm not sure anything is surprising, Dan.
Final note here, two things that I imagine may be a part of the annual meetings. Teams going in, like you talked about, 3 teams. You got 3 full members going out. You got 6 coming in. What is the hopeful timetable of either the going ins or the coming ins or the going outs? And then we've seen schools looking at dissolving divisions and changing to different models. What is the model? So what's the timetable for the teams going out and coming in? And once those teams come in, you're going to have 14-member football schools. What is your thought on how you're going to handle scheduling?
Well, right now, Dan, we'd be very happy if the 3 stayed right through July 1, 24, which is what our bylaws require, and that was the notice that they gave us, that they'd be there until then, unless there was some kind of mutually agreeable early exit. Mm-hmm. So we, in good faith, have been negotiating with them to see if there is a way where they could exit in 23, but we'd have to get, the compensation that we require in order for that to happen. And so far it hadn't happened. So I'm not sure what the timetable is, but we know it's either 23 or 24. The schools coming in know that they're not, likelihood not coming in until the others leave. We made it clear that they have no right to come in before the others leave, but it's all been amicable. We tell them, okay, this is what we think is going to happen. So that part's up in the air, and the timetable, we hope to get this resolved over the next several weeks or months. But, again, if we can't get it resolved, then the others just stay till July 1, 24. I mean, our bylaws are very clear, and we would look to enforce them. In terms of divisions, I think you'll probably see us abandon divisions. We haven't had them, obviously, for a couple of years because we've been playing with 11 teams in the absence of UConn, and we got a waiver from the NCAA for a few years to play with 11 teams, not have a round robin, and play our 2 best teams in the championship game, the teams with the best conference percentage win-loss record. So at this point, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to go back to divisions. And the reason is you want to have your 2 best teams playing in the championship game, especially with the college football playoff very likely to expand, very likely to include the top 6 conference champions. But you don't want to risk as a team from another division with 3 losses defeating your undefeated team in the championship game. You'd rather have, or a 1-loss team. But more than that, we think that if we don't have divisions, we have more scheduling flexibility to make sure everybody's playing each other on a regular basis. We're going to be at 14 at some point, whether it's this year or next year, or 2023 or 24, excuse me. And so we know that we're looking at 14 and how you work that out. We'll probably stick with an 8-game conference schedule. It makes sense for us because we really need those 4 non-conference games. It's really important to continue to build our league. And, we're under no illusions, Dan. We've separated ourselves from the G4 we belong with the others. But we've got to rebuild to the extent that we're losing 3 important schools. We're adding some really good schools with some good programs, especially in football drives everything, as you know. But we also have some good basketball coming in. And we have some good incumbent schools. What people forget sometimes is that it hasn't just been, in fact, Houston hadn't even been on the radar until this year for several years. After 2016, they kind of fell off a bit. Every school in our conference has done pretty well, has had their moments. Temple had several really good years under Matt Rule and Jeff Collins. East Carolina was probably our best team in the early going, but didn't necessarily, they lost some close games. They had the great Shane Carden at quarterback, and they were a top team. USF had some tremendous years with Willie Taggart and Charlie his very first year. And then things fell off. But, you look at Tulsa's been in a championship game, has had multiple 10-win seasons. SMU, both the last 4 years under Sonny, has made great strides. Memphis went to the Cotton Bowl. Memphis was a huge program the whole decade. They were the rivals of UCF, and they played in the championship games. They played against Cincinnati in the championship games and won and went to the Cotton Bowl. So everybody, you look at Tulane, they went to 3 straight bowls until this year, and they hadn't done that in a long time. So every school in our conference has contributed. Temple's been, as I said, Navy, I think it's been ranked since they joined our conference in 2015, 28 times in different rankings, during a season, and prior to that, virtually not at all for really a decade or more. So we've got a good nucleus to build on, but again, you're losing 3 important schools. Right. And who's arguing that? They've accounted for 5 of our last 6 New Year's Day games. So we've got some work to do, but we'll do it. And the DNA of this conference hasn't changed one bit. We'll probably be even more aggressive on the P6. I think we were ready, as you know, we wrote that letter to the commissioners, and I thought it was a strong letter. And I think we were right there on the cusp, ready to go try to get legislation, maybe even go beyond that. And then, the floor caved a little bit because of the Texas-Oklahoma earthquake. And we'll regroup. This meeting's important because we will have our new schools at this meeting, and we'll be able to talk strategy long-term and what we think we need to do. But our schools are going to have to invest at an even greater level. And then finally, in closing, Dan, the wild card is now this NIL transfer portal business. Mm-hmm. I think under the old system, we did very well. We got some great kids. We developed them. They were reluctant to transfer because they have to sit out a year. And it made kids think hard about, why they're at a place, what the future is, loyalty. The coaching issue was an issue. It seemed to me we probably could have put in a rule that if coaches left, kids can leave, right? Maybe they have to spend that year in residency, but if coaches leave, the kids can leave because they didn't go there thinking they would be playing for a different coach. And maybe you would have a rule that said coaches couldn't take new jobs until the season was over. And that way you'd prevent all this nonsense about teams without coaches going into bowl games and playing the end of the season with a lot of turmoil. That's something maybe we could have done. We didn't do it, and we're in the drink now. But I think in the end, that's another thing we've got to kind of get our arms around, get a handle on. And I don't know how this is all going to affect our conference because, like you say, you develop these players, they can just go across the street, they can be recruited, even though you're starting to see tampering charges now. I don't know if they're true or not. I'm not going to make any accusations against anybody, but it's going to be harder, I think, for us to do what we did the last decade. I mean, think about what this conference did. 7 out of 9 New Year's Days, right? Made the playoff, had probably 3 or 4 teams that were playoff worthy but didn't have that opportunity. Would have made it 7 of 9 years if you had the new system in place, right? Might have even had a shot because a committee decides it. 2014, maybe Memphis would have been chosen, because a committee would have been deciding it, Who knows? Point is, we've had a great decade, but we've got real challenges ahead. And you hit it right on the head. These the NIL, the transfer portal, we will have to make the decision on divisions. We'll probably make it our annual meeting next week. And the timetable for the other 3 is still totally up in the air.
Yeah, which puts us in a place of, knowing that this future is coming at some point, and the branding's coming here at some point. In the annual meeting, like you said, the new schools will be a part of it. So do you have everybody there, or does Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, do they not? Okay. Yeah,
no, they don't participate in meetings like this. We've been great to them, and we've included them in a ton of things where we didn't even have to. With our bylaws, Dan, once you declare you're leaving, you don't go to meetings anymore. And there's a reason for that. You're going to be in a competing conference. you know, and when we talk about strategy and we talk about long-term, you know, you don't want to share that with essentially another conference. And they know that. And that's why we do it the way we do it. We've never had an issue with anybody in the past. You know, we don't say they can't compete in our championships. We welcome that. You know, the only issue we've had is that they're not, if a championship was slated for one of their places, you know, we could move it somewhere else. Sometimes we just leave it there. Point is, we have strict bylaws, but we have been very, very open. If they have questions, you know, our staff has reached out to them. We treat their student athletes the same as we treat anybody else. We don't want them to feel in any way that they're not being treated the same. You know, all this nonsense officiating, it's absolutely no issue at all. You know, I went to Cincinnati and I loved the experience, and I was proud of what they've done, and I'm proud of what these three have done for our league. I'm proud of what the league's done for them. Their fans were great to me when I was in Cincinnati. You try to, you know, it's a balancing act, Dan. You know, they're leaving, but on the other hand, you want to include them in as much as you can, but they're not included in these kinds of meetings. Now, they were just at the Big 12 meeting, so you know they're obviously going to be integrated into that situation fairly soon. So anyway, that's how we work it, and we'll have the 6 new schools with us. It'll be an interesting first time we've really had them all together. First time we've had a face-to-face meeting since the pandemic. It's all been virtual. It's all been Zoom like this. Yeah. But you know, should be a good week.
Yeah, future bright. UTSA, UAB, Rice, North Texas, FAU, all these teams that are coming in here. And to see what this future in Charlotte as well, to see what they're going to bring to the table. And I've been to a lot of these cities. I've been to a lot of these places. I know that there's a lot of good coming into this conference, and a lot of great, very fertile ground coming in as well. So excited to see what's going to happen from here. And always, Mike, I appreciate talking with you. I appreciate how candid you are and how open you are with information here, and that you really allow it all to be out here on the table. So thank you for what you do with the American Athletic Conference. Thank you for what you're doing to juggle the collegiate athletic world that we live in today. And I appreciate you as always. I look forward to hopefully getting to see you soon.
Well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's not what we signed up for, that's for sure. It's a little different. On the other hand, you're right about the schools coming in, and we have a strong presence in Texas. We'll have an even stronger presence. These are in football hotbeds, and they also bring some very good basketball. Thanks again for having me, Dan. Always a pleasure, because you know your knowledge and your interest in our conference. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. I almost forget that's coming up because our meetings start right after that. But have a great holiday. And again, always appreciate you having me and the interest you show in our conference and your knowledge generally of the collegiate landscape. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that. You and I both know that we celebrate holidays, but we also work. So happy Memorial Day to you too.
Thanks, Dan. Hang in there. Take care.
In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also, I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You can find Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse. You can also find them at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and inside of their fantastic drive-thru that you will find at the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. With that being said, we are here today to continue our Commissioner Central series, taking a look at the world of collegiate athletics as we are today and as we step forward. And this coming from the commissioners and executive directors from around the country. I feel very honored and privileged for the opportunity now to speak with Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistrcill, who is joining our broadcast in this Commissioner Central series to give his thoughts on his conference, as well as what's going on in college athletics in general, including NIL, the transfer portal, the transformation committee, as well as what the NCAA is going to look like as we move forward. So, with that being said, joining us from the great state of Utah, Mr. Wistrcill, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, and let's start there. You know, your headquarters for the Big Sky Conference is in Utah. For those who have not been to the state of Utah, how would you describe calling Utah home for the Big Sky Conference?
Well, it's a perfect home for us. First of all, it's a beautiful place to live. Sun shines 300 plus days a year. So, being a Midwest native, I don't miss the weather back there, so I feel pretty fortunate to live in Utah. It's a great place for the Big Sky. It's right in the center of our league. We have schools in 8 states out west here, so from Colorado to California, from Washington down to Arizona. So to be here in the Salt Lake area, access to the airport, and can quickly get to our schools, it's a really good home for us.
You know, and having that, you know, calling Utah home, what do you like the most? I know you talked about 300 plus days of sunshine, so shout out to that, because I've been in places where there was like 6 days of sunshine a year. But
yes.
What are your favorite parts of Utah for yourself personally? What are the pieces of Utah that you just can't get enough of?
That you still get the change of seasons, so you still have 4 distinct seasons, but the weather is very mild here. You know, we still get snow, although obviously not as much as the mountains get that are just 20 miles away, but, you still get snow, but the sunshine, the sun is such a nice thing to see on a daily basis. I lived for years in Northeast Ohio. I grew up in Iowa and Minnesota and Wisconsin, and so, the sun just makes it so nice. And then no humidity. So, many of those places that I mentioned have high humidity in the summer. The humidity here, it's a desert basically here in the Salt Lake Valley. So, the humidity here is 20-25% on most days. So that's the beauty of it. The access to the national parks here, how easy it is to get around. I mean, from where I live on the south side of Salt Lake City, there are 4 ski resorts. So I could leave my house and be on the slopes in 20 minutes. So there's not many places you can actually live in a city and access ski resorts and all the beauty and the fun that the mountains have in such a close proximity. So feel very fortunate to call this place home.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I've never been out to Utah, but hearing you describe it, it makes me want to go out there and see what life is like. I mean, obviously, in coverage of the NBA, and the Utah Jazz and the history of that, and John Stockton and Karl Malone to what it's become now, there's definitely, I've felt a connection in coverage, but I've never been out there. So my first trip out to Utah, if I was going to spend 3 days in Utah, where do I eat? And what should I do? What are my activities in Utah if I came out there for the first time?
So, first of all, Utah's a big state.
Yeah.
The states out west are really big compared to the states out east. So, your 3 days, you're going to spend 1 day in Salt Lake City, just enjoying the downtown area and the various neighborhoods there. Every restaurant you could think of, every type of food is there. And it's a really cool foodie community, Salt Lake is. So then secondly, you got to head up to the mountains. So head up to the Park City area, the Heber Valley. There's so much to do there. The beauty, it doesn't matter what time of year either. In the winter, you're going to go skiing. In the summer, it's just a beautiful mountain area to hike and all kinds of activities. There's a couple of reservoirs up there. You can get a boat and go skiing and all these things. So that's great. And then you got to drive south to get to the national parks. Zion, Arches are two of my favorites. And it's just, they're some of the most beautiful places on earth that you can imagine. There's 5 national parks in the state of Utah. So take advantage of all of them. That is a long 3 days right there, because you got some driving to do. But nonetheless, it's a pretty drive, and you'll certainly get a nice piece of America out of it.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I can smell the air right now in Utah. I feel like I can feel it. So I am definitely excited about the opportunity to come out there sometime soon. And for the teams that call the Big Sky home, and obviously Utah being your headquarters, so having that headquarters there, having your teams around you, and the Big Sky being home, you joined the Big Sky Conference as its commissioner just a few years back in 2018. And so when you did that and you came in right before a pandemic, so good for you on that. But I mean, it's been a very interesting few years, I can imagine, for you coming in 2018, 2019, and then coming to the tail end of 2019 into 2020. Everything has looked different, felt different, been different. So how would you describe your tenure in the Big Sky as you made a move to be a part of that conference, be its commissioner? And within a very short time of doing that, we're faced with unprecedented circumstances that nobody could truly be completely prepared for.
Yeah, you're certainly reflecting on the times there. You're right. It's been a really interesting 4 years. I feel very fortunate. We got really good leadership in our league. Got a great group of presidents to work with, great group of athletic directors, and very successful programs. So, great foundation was here in the conference, and so for us, it's been about how do we maximize the opportunities we have ahead. We've made a lot of changes in our media rights since I've been on here, and the pandemic affected us. I mean, it affected everybody, right? I mean, there was no one that was immune to the challenges faced with the pandemic. So college sports is reflective of society. So we were fortunate that we were able to still put games on, get our student athletes out doing things, sports they love, and that we had to move some things around. As you might remember, we moved FCS football to the spring back then, and so a lot of craziness around what was going on. But nonetheless, I've just always remained to focus on the student athletes, and I'm a big believer that if we're doing right by them, then we're going to come out okay, because we're here to support their dreams and their goals, to provide great competition. And so that's kind of what we bought into here as a conference, is what can we do to better our student athlete situations. And we put on great championships, and we want to travel them in a great way. We want them to have a great experience being a part of the Big Sky when they come to a championship event, or they're traveling to one of our schools. And so our institutions have really bought into that and have upgraded things they're doing. So I think we've come out of the pandemic in a pretty good way. There's always little things here and there, but nonetheless, our schools have remained focused on their values, and I think overall we're in a good place.
And in seeing all these things, and you made mention of a bunch of different happenings since you came to the Big Sky as commissioner in 2018, you mentioned the media rights opportunity that you have here. And I want to stay with that for a second and expand on that. A media rights deal with ESPN, the largest ever for an FCS conference, Division I AA, for those of you playing the home game. Looking at what you've done, quadrupling both the league's television revenue and its national linear exposure, while maintaining regional rights for Big Sky markets to broadcast games on local television stations. Bring me into this, because there's a lot said there, right? Quadrupling 4 times what the league was used to on television and revenue-wise, and its national linear exposure on linear television outside of apps and whatnot, and then having regional rights maintained for Big Sky markets to still be able to broadcast their games on local television stations. Because, I hail from Syracuse, New York, and in Syracuse being part of the ACC network, the biggest gripe that fans have in Syracuse is that people living in Syracuse cannot watch Syracuse games. And so they can't watch Syracuse University games on local television, and that's been a big issue. So having this media right deal with ESPN that has quadrupled revenue, that has allowed for you to still have the opportunity for local television stations to air games, just all of the pieces to this media rights deal and how important it was to not only obviously bring more money in for the conference and more exposure, but to make sure that people that are living within the communities of these schools were not going to have the games stolen away from them.
Yeah, you did talk about a lot there. And so, I'll sum it up in a couple of different areas. One is that, people are getting accustomed to watching streamed events. And so, it might be something that, as my parents who were in their 70s, how do I get to ESPN Plus and how do I watch that, right? So I've had to explain to them how they can access ESPN Plus and that, and I think for us it's been about getting people to embrace the streaming platform that allows them to watch all the events. So, because you hit it earlier. You said the Syracuse people can't watch the events. Okay, so that's absolutely what I had to avoid. Our goal was everything that we competed in as a conference that we could put on in some place. There's not enough spots on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPNU for everyone. So, and the biggest conferences snap those up. So they take those away. So we have to find a place. Okay, how do we get our games on? How do we get our football games on? How do we get our basketball games on? I want our softball games on, volleyball, women's basketball, you name it. I want those on. So that's where ESPN Plus comes in. And they've been a great partner. We had a great first year with them. And our fans really embraced it to be able to say, I just want to watch the game. And so that's what we're able to do and able to maximize our revenue. And I think they've realized that we can help them grow their product with the strength of our programs and our fan bases out here in the Big Sky. So that's been a great partnership. So the second part of that is we also want to provide a linear option for our schools that have demand. So, for example, at Montana and Montana State, huge demand there for their product. And so we can go in. We did a deal with Scripps TV, which is a network. They've got a number of stations out west here where they can cover games linear. So they might be on the CW network or the CBS station in the market there. So people have an option then. They have an option to go to ESPN Plus, where they've always gone to now, to watch the game, or some of their games will be on local linear TV. And so for us, it was about how do we maximize both. I wanted to provide both and not be exclusive in it. And so that's what we've done, and that's what we're excited about. So now our fans have options, but ESPN Plus is still the primary carrier. And then, oh, by the way, we're able to put a couple of football games on ESPNU or ESPN2 and be the only FCS conference that can do that, so that, that we get some national TV exposure on the linear side, and to do the same thing with basketball. So it's kind of striking a balance between the two. But we have to be in a place where our fans can access the content for every single game, and that was where we started with. How do we do that? And I think we've been pretty successful so far.
Yeah, and having that, right, that's important to make sure that you're visible and it's not hard to find you. In the world that we live in today of collegiate athletics, speaking here with Tom Wistrcill, the Big Sky Commissioner, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside the Cafe Kubal studios. Just what you can say about, how do you go into these negotiations and find a piece of the pie? Because it's so difficult, right, to get on. And, well, you have to sell yourself, you have to sell your conference, you have to sell what you can do, sell the schools within it, sell different pieces of how you do what you do. And then if you sell that and somebody says, okay, you know what, I want to buy it, I want to put you out there, now you have to negotiate how much is it going to cost. And then from there, it's when are we going to be on? Do we have to change our schedules? Do we have to play on Thursdays? Do we have to play a lot of our games on Fridays? How do we make this work that it makes sense that we can get it? So how do you step into these negotiations and sell the Big Sky? And then second to that, how hard is it to carve out a piece of the pie in today's America?
So we're very fortunate. We've got a contract with a consulting group out of New York City, Collegiate Sports Management Group, CSMG, and Michael Schreck, their president, Ray Katz, their co-owner, the two of them worked really hard with us. They're very experienced in this marketplace, experienced working with mid-major conferences like us, and so we had a great partner to help this. So that I don't want to discount the fact that they were a huge part of this. And then we have a couple staff members here, Dan Satter and John Casper, who have good experience in what we're doing. So we were all kind of a team together in trying to figure out, you got to be realistic. We're not going to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars like the Power Five. So, we have to be realistic about what we can do. And essentially what you're doing is you're deciding between what's more important. Is it money or is it exposure? At our level, you can't really have both. And so we chose exposure first, knowing that we could also generate some revenue as well. And so those negotiations took place over the course of about a year, back and forth with 3 or 4 different suitors. We kind of narrowed that down to 2. And then in the end, we had a number of athletic directors, faculty reps, SWAs, athletic directors involved in this, and then ultimately had a recommendation to the presidents that I took and said, here's what I think our best deal is. This is why. And they embraced it. I think they know the power of the ESPN brand. And so getting that done, I think at that point it was the right move for us. Then it was a matter of we had to invest at our school level in technology. We needed to buy cameras. We needed to run some wires. We needed to hire staff to make sure that we could bring the broadcast to our levels and to ESPN levels. So there was a lot of investment made at our school levels. So, it's kind of all hands on deck. I think we ended in a really good place, and our fans have really responded. We hear from student athletes, coaches, parents. When I travel to schools, all people say, "Hey, that move to ESPN Plus was really cool." And it's that $6-7 a month that they're paying to access the content seems like a good figure, and it seems like it's driving value to them. So we feel good about that.
Yeah, and obviously it's important, like you said, and to go after the exposure, make sure that you're out there easily accessible, and then build upon that and continue to work the branding in that sense. You got to spend money to make money. Have to put yourself out there. Tom Wistrcill, the Big Sky commissioner here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Tom, you're also a part of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee. Bring me into that and being a part of that committee and what that does for the Big Sky and making sure that you have a voice and understand exactly what's going on when it comes to college basketball.
Yeah, I'm really excited to join the committee. I'll attend my first meeting of the committee here in July. So next year will be my first time as part of the selection process. I've got a number of good friends on the committee that I've known for a long time, and very excited to be a part of it. It's a big thing for any mid-major conference to be a part of that. I want to learn about the process. I want to understand, decisions that are made and why, and then I can bring that back to our coaches and to our athletic directors and talk about ways to better basketball for us. So, I'm really excited about joining the committee. It's a real big honor, and fortunate to be a part of what I consider the greatest sporting event in all of sports, which is March Madness, and it captures the country for that entire month. And people still talk about St. Peter's from the last tournament, and who knows who will be next year. But I'll have a front row seat for it, and really looking forward to being a part of that process.
And what I love about this is you're getting involved in this committee. You get involved with the schools within your conference. And what I love is you do something called competing against the commish, and you played horse with the Montana men's basketball team. You did the weight throw at Montana State. You practiced volleyball at Portland State. You also pitched in softball at Sacramento State, and you threw the shot put in Idaho. So bring me into this, competing against the commish, why it's so important to not only go on to the college campuses of the schools that are within the Big Sky, but to make sure that you're getting involved, making it fun, doing something unique with the actual student athletes and the programs to show just how dedicated you are to every school, to the student athletes, and to the institutions that are within the Big Sky.
Yeah, it's so important that the student athletes know that the conference office, that there are real people there, and that we care about them. And so I really have enjoyed that. unfortunately, the pandemic stopped it, but we'll start it up again here in the fall. And it's just a way for me to interact with them, have some fun. We had a lot of laughs doing all those things, most of them laughing at me, or with me, I should say, because I can tell you that when you're trying to return a volleyball serve that's coming at you as a knuckleball, that is extremely hard. And they make it look easy, but it's not. And so it's just been a fun way to do it. To me, I've like I said earlier, I've always been this is about the student athletes, and that's what I enjoyed. When I was an athletic director earlier in my career, working on campus, was the interactions with the student athletes. And so it's easy not to be a part of that in the conference office because we're not on a campus. So when I go to campuses, I want to interact with those student athletes and let them know who I am, what I'm there to do, what the conference office does, what the commissioner position's about. And so it's a great way for me to interact with them.
And in speaking on the student athlete, the bigger picture of all collegiate athletics right now, name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal. I know you've had experience that may help you to understand this a little bit better or find some angles to it. So I'd love for you to share your thoughts on where name, image, and likeness is, as well as the transfer portal and what it's done for collegiate athletics, good or bad, and obviously integrating within this conversation your experience that you have had, because I know that your journey to where you are today could maybe help student athletes in understanding these very wide open opportunities a little bit better.
Yeah, we're in a real time of transition right now, a real time of some chaos within college athletics. I'm a big fan of the student athlete empowerment issues, and name, image, and likeness I think is a great thing, and really happy to see our student athletes being able to take advantage of those opportunities, put a little money in their pocket, and learn about business and about opportunities and about challenges. And it's a great educational tool that way. Unfortunately, it started in a way where it just kind of opened the floodgates, and there's not a lot of rules around it, and so it is unfortunately creeped into recruiting inducements, and that certainly more at the Power 5 level than at our level. But that's just really sad to see, because obviously that's not the intention of it, but that's where it's gone. And so at some point we have to find a way to try to corral that a little bit. And people love to use the word guardrails there. I don't know how that's going to work, because we've kind of states have laws, and different schools have had different rules that they've tried to follow in that, and we've been asking for federal government help. I don't know if that's going to come anytime soon. It doesn't seem to have much movement on it. And so, while I'm a big fan of the student athletes being able to take advantage of those opportunities, we have to find a way so that this doesn't become a pay to recruit. It's just gotten to a point now. We just can't have, it in that space. And so we got to find a way to control that. I think once they get on campus, then I think the market will settle itself after a couple of years, like most things. The first year is really chaotic. Second year, people start to figure it out. And then, I think by year 3, I think one of the things that it isn't being talked about enough is I think businesses are going to start to say, okay, what's our return on the investment in these types of things? And some will invest more because they're getting out of it, and others are going to get out of the space and be like, I'm just not getting much out of it, So the market will dictate, I think, our future that way. We just have to find some way to govern it and to manage it in a way where, we have some set of rules around it. The transfer portal, I'm a fan of our student athletes being able to go. I like if we can find some ways to keep it in certain segments of the calendar. Because, the worst thing we can do, and it's not good for the student athletes either, is, a month before a season starts, whether it's football in August or we're talking basketball in like October, that month before the season starts. If you have a bunch of student athletes coming in and out, then that kind of ruins it for everybody. And so, I'm happy for that one student athlete that got to do what they wanted to do, but I don't want that to be at the expense of the other student athletes as part of the program. And so that's why I think we need to have some windows in there. And if they want to transfer 3 times in their college career, as long as academically they're making progress, I think more power to them. And so I'm a fan of that as well. I want them to stay academically eligible because they need to graduate. They need to work towards graduation. And then as long as we keep it away from damaging the rest of the team so close to the season, it's uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like it, but I think that's here to stay as well. And so dramatic impact from those two topics. When you talk about name, image, and likeness, talk about the transfer portal, the world's changing, and college athletics needs to change as well. And the ones that embrace it and will be the ones that end up on top, from coaches and conferences and schools. The ones that kind of really embrace it, they're going to be the ones that end up in the best situation.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Change is inevitable, and so it's finding a way to navigate through that and find the positive within all of that. So, obviously, as you step forward as Big Sky commissioner, there's going to continue to be those challenges. There has been the conversation brought up. You talked about, obviously an individual making their life better is good for them, but you don't want it to hurt the team as an overall, as a whole, as a unit. So, I've looked at the reality that there's the conversation out there of having windows for the transfer portal that are going to allow for there to be 2 times during the year where this could happen. And that would prevent these late additions and subtractions from affecting teams, right? If I'm a quarterback and I commit somewhere, and then you got a quarterback that played 2 years at Alabama and he's transferring in, now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I just signed my letter of intent. I'm here on campus, and now this guy's coming in, and obviously he's not coming in to sit. So, I should go somewhere else, but now I can't. And then to a coach saying, well, if these guys can leave all the way up until this point, well, now I'm in a situation where I went out there and I recruited 22 guys and gave them scholarships, but now I have 11 open scholarships. I should have recruited 33, but I didn't know, and I couldn't anticipate for that. So are you somebody that is for having some type of restrictive rules that say, yes, you can transfer freely, but there has to be a window, just like there's a window for the NBA to put your name into the draft and then take it back out if you don't hire an agent? Should there be regulation within the transfer rules that say, yeah, you can transfer wherever you want and you can play immediately, but you need to allow a school to have X amount of time to be able to prepare for that. So we're not going to let you transfer at any time. We're going to have these windows that are going to coincide with maybe the early signing period and the February signing period, so a coach can actually know what they're going to have and what they're not going to have.
Yes, is the answer to that. And I talked a little bit about that before, that I think there needs to be some windows. We need to have some way, like I said, to keep it where we can help the student athletes out, but not ruin it for everyone. And like I said, if that quarterback, the example you gave there, if that quarterback decides to transfer on April 15th, 2 weeks before the first game, that can ruin it for everybody. The school he's leaving, it can ruin their season, and the school he's going to, that could ruin their student athletes' experience. And so that's why I think there's an opportunity for us to have those windows. I think that's better for everybody.
And Tom, for you, I mean, we look at the experience you had before coming to the Big Sky Conference as their commissioner. I'd love for you to share with us those stops that you had and how they have affected you, because you've been inside of the autonomy group, right? The quote unquote Power Five. So you know what the world looks like from within there. How has your journey to the Big Sky helped you to be a strong commissioner? And what did you learn from your experience within inside of the autonomy group of those 5 conferences?
Yeah, I was a Division III student athlete. I've been a Division II commissioner, a Division I athletic director, and now a Division I commissioner. So I've kind of seen all sides of it.
Yeah.
Certainly being an athletic director for the 6 years that I was at the University of Akron, I think really helped me, try to understand, college athletics from the top leadership positions. Before that, my experience at Minnesota, Wisconsin, being at Power 5 schools, like you said, kind of gave me an insight into the top level of, okay, what are the challenges we have and how do we move things forward, and that aggressive type nature that you need to have at the Power 5 to compete at the highest level. And so I really enjoyed that. being an athletic director, I think that gave me great credibility here coming into the Big Sky, because I've sat in those AD chairs. I've interacted with presidents and board of regents, board of trustees. And so, a lot of my job here is working with those same groups and finding solutions for the problems that we have, and working together and bringing people together for those challenges. And so, the experience at the Power Five is very unique, because, like I said, it's the constant pressure, it's the constant excitement, it's the constant, what are we going to do today to win tomorrow? And so, that's a pace that, some people like, some people don't like. And so the fan bases are rabid. And so that's really exciting to be at that top level. But I've also enjoyed, being here at the FCS level, where we play an incredibly, tough brand of college athletics, and certainly football. Competing for national championships is really exciting. And so that's what I've really enjoyed about my role here, is working with the number of institutions that we have. Starting in the fall, we have 10 full-time members and two football affiliates. And so it's about, for us, dominating the West at our level, getting opportunities once in a while to knock off those Mountain West and Pac-12 schools when we get a chance. But it's about winning national championships and being and finding nationally competitive programs. So that's my experience. I'm the son of two coaches, so I've been around this my whole life. I grew up in it, and it's just kind of what I know. And so I've been fortunate in my career to have different stops, to interact with different people, to learn a lot of things, and get a chance to interact with sports in a way that's really personal to me, and been able to be part of my professional life, and excited to bring that here to the Big Sky and see what we can do next.
To be the son of two coaches and to have experience at Division I, Division II, and Division III, how similar or different do you see the divisions, and do you see this overall sports world? Because I think it's important that those people that experience it, and in my world, I went to a Division III school. I work very closely with Division I, II, and III schools, JUCO schools, USCAA, NJCAA. I know coaches at different levels. I know administration, leadership at different places, commissioners at different divisions. So I do my best to see all of it, to understand it, and be able to talk about it with an ounce of knowledge and wisdom to what it actually is. Because you've had experience with all of this, how would you describe it? Are the worlds that different? Is there that much discrepancy, or do you see a lot of similarities within it? How would you describe the world of sports, having been a part of so many different pieces of it?
At its core, it's extremely similar, right? I mean, it's funny. I was just talking about this the other day with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the NBA playoffs, and we were talking about practice. And I've been to an NBA practice, and I coached my kids' third grade basketball team. And I was coming to him, I said, basketball practice is basketball practice. There's only so many things you're going to do. There's only so many things you can do with a ball and a hoop in a gym. So, so that's the great thing about sports, right? At its core, it's very similar. Around it, they're very different. Division III athletics compared to Power Five, right? That's the scope of college athletics there. And so, there's so many things that go into it, and that's part of our challenge right now, quite frankly, here at Division I, right? We have, 360 schools in Division I right now, and there are huge differences within those 360, and that's causing part of the friction we have right now with the transformation committee, and kind of what we look into the future here 5-10 years from now. What does this look like? How do we survive? And how do we help the Power Five get kind of what they want while still keeping the umbrella, everybody kind of under the umbrella here, and protecting the things that are most important to all of us? And so, my experiences in all those different areas, I think, have really prepped me for those discussions. I've enjoyed being a part of it, but it's a very unpredictable future, even though, like I said, at its core, sports is sports. And so, like I said, it's an interesting time to be a part of it. There's so much going on that it's sometimes hard to kind of decide what's the issue of the day to focus on. But nonetheless, there's a place for great conferences like ours, and a great future ahead. We just got to figure out what that looks like.
So with the transformation going about and the NCAA writing a new constitution and trying to figure out who they are, the NCAA president will have a vacancy. And Mark Emmert has said when it came to football, during really the start of the pandemic, he said there is no czar. And he basically put out, I have no control over college football. And I can't tell a school or institution or conference whether or not they can play. So a lot of questions have been brought up as to what the NCAA president's role is in college football, what their role is in general. Now we're going to be looking for a new one in the not too distant future. Transformation, NIL, transfer portal, and the rewriting of a constitution. All of this has led me to the question of, Tom, you've been a part of this for a very long time. Where do you see the future of college athletics, and will the NCAA survive it?
I do think the NCAA will survive it. I think it'll look very different. I think what we have to decide, because we are the NCAA, right? Those 360 Division I schools, heck, 1,000 counting Division II, Division III. So what we have to decide is what do we want the NCAA to do? One of the things we've talked about as commissioners is they run great championships. And so we want them to continue to get in stay in the championship business. Do we want them to stay in compliance? Do we want them to stay in enforcement? Do we want them to stay in playing and practice rules? I don't know. And that's part of what all this process is going on. So that's why my answer to your question is there is a place for them. We just have to decide what do we want them to do. And I think, it's a good time for a new president to be coming into the NCAA. It's a good time for new leadership there. And so, I'm hopeful that, we can find a leader that's really open to change and willing to work with all of us practitioners to find a better way. My crystal ball is no clearer than anybody else's. And, that's what kind of makes this an interesting time, because there's confusion and there's chaos and there's a lot of questions. And it's kind of like nobody really knows who's in charge. And so that makes it really hard. But, nonetheless, we're still going to play games in the fall in all different sports, and off we're going to go. But it'll be a really interesting time here over these next couple of years as we start to chart a new course. And it's going to look different. I think that's what people have to embrace. It's not going to be the same. And, does that mean we have to give on some things to make it work? Yeah, maybe. Do we need the Power Five's help in a few areas? Sure. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. It's going to be a really interesting ride. So people need to buckle up, and we'll see where we go.
That coming from Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistrcill here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. When we look at, like you said, buckle up there, we're gonna see where we're going from here and what's going to happen from here. As we buckle up and we get on this ride and conferences have their individual meetings and you talk amongst yourselves individually, how much of this future do you believe is going to be individualistic? Are we living in a world where conferences are going to function as their own island and separate by themselves, say, this is what we're going to do? And we see the conferences form alliances, right? Some of them do it to expand their football footprint and expand their competition, so that's understandable. The ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten have a joint alliance that I think is in retaliation and in preparation of what the SEC could do. So how much of the future of college football do you think is going to be based on centralized governance of the NCAA? And how much of it is going to be every conference essentially functioning like their own state in the union?
Yeah, you raise a really good point there, and great questions, Dan. I'm a believer that, one of the things that has gotten to this point is unfortunately litigation. And, the entire enterprise of college athletics is spending so much on legal fees and payouts and that, and we got to find a way to avoid that. And as I talk to my friends in the Power Five, they're paying so much in legal fees that we got to find a way to kind of help lessen that. And part of that will be is to get away from antitrust, and that would lead towards more individualization of each conference kind of dictating some of their own rules. And so that's what the lawyers antitrust lawyers are telling us. It's kind of what the Supreme Court decision, that's the message they were sending us. And so we're going to have to be a little more individualistic. So, we might have to be okay at some point with, if a Big Sky school is playing Syracuse in volleyball, maybe they have different scholarship models. Maybe there's a different number of student athletes and different ways they're getting aid. Right now they would be the same, right? But maybe that needs to change. And what the ACC is going to be different than what the Big Sky does. And the Big Sky is going to be different than the Mountain West Conference and so forth. And so, we might have, that might be in our future there. That's part of what needs to be decided. But it wouldn't surprise me one bit if that comes into it. And if that's where we go, that's okay. Again, I'm not afraid of that, because right now, using that ACC example, if a student athlete is picking between school A and the ACC and school B and the Big Sky, the ACC school already has 5, 6, 10 things, that the Big Sky school doesn't have. If you add one more of them, that doesn't change things. And so, we just can't be afraid of change here. And so that's the kind of the message that I think we're all sending out is change is coming. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's embrace it. Let's talk about it. Get the right people in the room and find solutions that we can live with. And so there's going to be negotiations here as we go along, and we'll wait and see how that plays out.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have to keep a close eye on everything that's going on here as it's continued to be more and more confusing, and hopefully some dust can settle here. Looking at your Big Sky Conference moving forward here, Tom, you have your full-time members. You have 10 with Southern Utah leaving in July of this year, 2022. So you have Eastern Washington, Idaho State, Idaho, Montana, Montana State, Northern Arizona, Northern Colorado, Portland State, Sacramento State, and Weber State. Of these full-time members, and of course you have your affiliate members, Cal Poly and UC Davis for football, and you have Hartford, and shout out to a place an hour away from my hometown, Binghamton, both Hartford and Binghamton for men's golf. Your affiliate members obviously expand your conference. You have 10 full-time with Southern Utah leaving. How do you move forward with the 10 full-time, and what are your thoughts on the future of the Big Sky? Could we look at expansion? Could we look at the addition of more affiliated members? With Southern Utah leaving, where would you like to go, as you're still going to have 12 football schools thanks to the affiliations with Cal Poly and UC Davis?
Yeah, we feel really good about where we're at. Our 10 institutions, I think, are very solid, very good schools, great leadership, well-run organizations. I think all comfortable as FCS schools, feel like they're in the right place, the right conference. So I really like the stability of our 10. I think that, our 2 affiliates in football in California are great partners, and we're very fortunate to have them having a 12-team conference. And I believe we're the strongest and deepest conference in the FCS. Haven't won a national title in a while, as North Dakota State's been dominating that, and credit to them. But nonetheless, I think top to bottom, we have the strongest FCS conference in the nation. So I feel really good about our leadership. You never say never. You're always got your ear to the ground and talking to people about what's next, what's out there, that type of thing. But there are no plans right now. We're not having discussions about expansion as a conference. With Southern Utah leaving, this next year will be our first year with an even number in both. And that really helps scheduling. Our models for scheduling are much better with even numbers than they are with odd numbers. So feel good about where we're at there. Nonetheless, you're always watching and talking and listening to see what's out there. And I can't predict the future, but I can at least plan for it. So we'll continue to do that.
And I have to ask here, you look at schools that you have as affiliated members, and we live in a world where things are constantly changing and parts are consistently moving. Bringing in schools that are on the East Coast and bringing them over to Utah, in Hartford and in Binghamton, how did those come about that in men's golf it fit for you to associate yourself with Hartford as well as Binghamton?
So in men's golf, there's only so many programs around the country, and you need to have at least 6 to have an automatic qualifier into the NCAA tournament. And so for us, it's been about how do we provide that? We don't have certainly not enough schools in our conference, so we needed to go find some affiliate members. And at the time, Binghamton and Hartford didn't have a place for the men's golf teams, and so they've joined us. Part of the challenge for us is going to be Hartford, as discussed, going Division III. And so we're in the process right now of looking for another men's golf affiliate to keep our number above the minimum. So it's about canvassing the entire country, talking to people. There are some movements out east, so we might have an opportunity there to find some other partners for men's golf. But again, that's something we're actively involved in right now, is trying to solve our issues there and find a long-term solution.
And another thing, you talk about issues and finding a solution. This is something that affects every student athlete and in my opinion, every human being at some point in our lives, because none of us are perfect, and sometimes the weight of the world gets heavy. You have a mental health subcommittee, and I'd love to get your thoughts on the importance of mental health and what the Big Sky is trying to do to make sure that student athletes, coaches, the student body in general, yourself in your front office, that everyone is in a place where they know that there are services to help, there are people to help, and that we don't walk alone. Mental health growing up as a kid, for me, I'm 36 years old, most of the time you were told, get over it, deal with it, don't worry about it, you're bothering me. And now in today's world, it's let's talk about it, let's sit down about it. I would love to have, an importance to mental health when I was growing up as a kid, because, you got told all the time, toughen up and deal with it. What can you say about the Big Sky stance on mental health and the importance of making sure that that is something that never takes a backseat?
Yeah, it's a very important thing for us. At times it's our most important thing. I mean, our student athletes are on campus. They've got a lot of pressures in their lives, academically, athletically, socially, emotionally, and we have to become involved with them. It has to be a focal point for what we're trying to do, is to help them on their journey, to be with them in times of need, and to not only cheer with them when things go well, but be there to give them a hug and to pat them on the back when things aren't going well, and to let people know that we're there for them and that we're supporting them in good and bad times, like I said. So it's an important initiative. It's been an important initiative nationally here over the last few years with all NCAA programs, and each conference and each institution has really taken it seriously and putting resources towards it, hiring people, setting up organizational structures inside the athletic department and the universities to balance out those needs. So it's a big part of what we're doing. I feel like we're making progress, and we're being supportive where we can, and so we'll continue to do that. So fortunate that we can help provide some of those resources to our schools.
And Tom, a couple final points here with Tom Wistrcill, the Big Sky Commissioner, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of our Commissioner Central series, where we go around the country getting the thoughts of our leaders for collegiate athletics. So, Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistrcill here with us. Tom, you brought the men's and women's basketball championships to Boise, Idaho, and that move was made in March of 2019. Bring me into why and the benefits of being in Boise, Idaho, and what that's done for the Big Sky.
For years out here, we had our championship, men's and women's basketball championship on campus. And quite frankly, the distances that we have just doesn't make it work. You can't decide on a Sunday that, oh, by the way, the tournament's in Bozeman, Montana, and then get all the teams there in 3-4 days. It just doesn't work logistically and cost-wise for our schools. So we really focused in on a neutral site as a conference. So they were in Reno before I got here, and it was just an okay place, quite frankly. So going to Boise was a pretty easy decision. They stepped up and really wanted us. We go up there that first year. They've got a great arena downtown, lots of hotels, restaurants, bars are walkable, and it's been a really good home for the years that we've been there. Our fans have embraced it. 7 of our 10 schools can drive there, and so their fan bases can get to Boise. It's a clean city. It's safe. Like I said, the facility is wonderful, and almost all of our teams can walk to the arena from their hotels. So it's a really good home for us. We've built a nice base there. This past year was our best year ever, both financially and attendance-wise. And so it's been a really good home for us. That's why last year was the start of a new 5-year contract for us with Boise to go there. And we're really fortunate. You look at some of those neutral site places at the mid-major level, and there's no one in the stands, and there's nothing around those arenas. But that's not the case for us. So we feel really good about where we're at with Boise, and look to continue to grow that. That's a big part of our focus here in the conference office, since that is the event that we run that takes the most energy and effort from us. So it's been a really good home, and we're really fortunate to have it.
And final and most important question, Tom, of everything that you deal with as a Big Sky commissioner, as a commissioner in general, and in the world of today's collegiate athletics, what is your favorite part of your job? The thing that you get up every morning and thank God for that you are able to do. What is that thing?
Well, outside of the obvious stuff about family and faith and those types of things, it's being able to support our student athletes, and that's what gets me up. That's what it's always been about for me and working in college athletics. It's so much fun to be at championship events and present the trophies to our student athletes and coaches, and just to see the joy in their eyes and the emotion they feel about winning a championship. And I understand, since I've been around it my whole life, the energy and effort that's gone into their journey to get to that point, but everybody feels differently. Everybody's got their own individual journey there, and so that's what's cool about it, to see it. So that's what I love about college sports. It's why I've never worked in pro sports and don't have an interest in that, is to be part of the collegiate experience, and we have to be careful to preserve that here as we go forward, and to never lose sight of the fact that that's what we're here for, and let's hope we can continue to serve our student athletes that way.
Tom Wistrcill, Big Sky Commissioner, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora's Commissioner Central Series. Tom, I appreciate it, and I look forward to the opportunity to have you back here again soon, and would love to catch up with you after your meetings as well.
All right, Dan, thank you very much.
Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town. around, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway. PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. Very happy to be here with you and happy to be hanging out here inside of these Cafe Kubal studios. You can find Cafe Kubal at 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. And, of course, you'll find them at the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners as well in their drive-thru location in North Syracuse. So, with that being said, I want to thank all my guests for being a part of today's broadcast. We also have a very special for you as we round out every single episode that we do here on Tuesdays, as we get to bring you the ingredients to success. And they mean the world to me to be able to bring you the ingredients to success. So let's do that right now. The ingredients to success, proudly brought to you by Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Always appreciate having Avicoli's with the ingredients to success. So with that being said, for Avicoli's, today's topic for the ingredients to success, I would say moving forward. How about this? Moving forward, right? Moving forward is the topic for today's ingredients to success. We're going to bring them up right here. So moving forward for the ingredients to success. How do we do that? How do we move forward? How do we find a way to move forward? And my advice to you is you have to let go of the things that have happened to you, right? The things that have happened to you, the things we can't control, the things that affect us deeply, right? We have to be able to let go of them. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have to heal from them, and it doesn't mean that we don't have to take the time to get past them. But it means that we have to let go of the things that are weighing us down. That's how you move forward. That's how you live a better life. You have to let go of those things that have pained you over time. Because if you don't, they'll drown you. Okay? Moving forward is an art. Moving forward is an everyday thing. Moving forward isn't always easy. Moving forward isn't always fair, right? There's things that happen that aren't fair. There's things that happen that just aren't right. And that's part of life. I don't want to tell you that, but I have to tell you that. Life is not always easy, And life is not always fair. Life doesn't always make sense. Life sometimes is that thing that we just don't understand. The thing that we try to figure out but can't seem to put our finger on, right? We just can't seem to fully get it. That's life. And life will do that to you. Life will bring you up. Sometimes life will try and throw you down. So how do you move forward? Well, you let go. You let go and you let God. You realize that things will get better even when they don't. Even when it seems like all hope is lost, understand that life does get better. We can move forward. We do move forward. We have the ability to do that as a team, as a group, as individuals. We can all move forward. We can all learn something from each other. Moving forward is a beautiful thing because it means that we're not keeping our feet stuck in the quicksand. Think about this. If you don't move forward, where do you move? You either move backward or you stand still. That's what happens. You either move backward or you stand still. Well, who in life wants to go backwards? And who in life wants to stand completely still and let life pass them by? I'm not saying don't appreciate the moment. I'm saying move forward. Find where to go next, where to challenge yourself next. Because life is not always easy, and it's not always fair. But we move forward by knowing who we are. We move forward by understanding that sometimes we can't understand, right? Sometimes the beauty of understanding is realizing that you can't. You're not going to always understand everything that happens to you. It's not always going to be clear, but you have to move forward. I could sleep on my pillow at night knowing that I don't hurt people on purpose. I know I don't try to hurt people on purpose. I never try to exclude anybody. I never try to push anybody away. And if you're not in my life, it says more about you than it says about me. Because the people that aren't in my life, that were in my life, are typically not in my life because they forced their way out. I've never wanted to push them out, but they pushed themselves out. So the question becomes, in our art of moving forward, in this grace of finding a way to continue on, who should we look to? Well, I look to God. I look to God. When I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong or I'm doing right, I look to God. I say, God, I think I'm doing this right. God, I think I said this right. God, I think I put this right. I think I did this right. But I let him tell me. I let him move me. I let him show me. Because we may not always know the best way to go. And we may be wrong when we think we're right. And we may be right when we think we're wrong. In today's world, everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but in today's world, a lot of people get hurt very easily. And it kind of makes us numb to everything, right? If everything hurts you, then how could you do anything right? And then you just become numb to it. But you move forward by understanding who you are, understanding what you could do, understanding where you want to go, understanding how to get there. And you may not know how to get there. We may not know how to get there sometimes. We may struggle with getting there, right? What road do I take? Is this the right road? Is this the right place to go? Is this the right thing for me to do? We may not always have the answers, but your job in your life, in my opinion, my job in my life is to know who I am and to know what I do and to know that if I can say, hey, I didn't purposely hurt this person, I didn't purposely attack this person, I didn't purposely do anything to ruin this relationship. If this relationship is strained, then tell me why. If there's something wrong, then tell me why. I don't have time for drama. I don't have time to deal with people having issues where there are no issues. There's a war in Ukraine right now. There's people dying of COVID. There's still COVID. There's still pandemic BS going on. There's still, and what I mean by that is it's like every few months, oh, there's the new variant. Well, great. So, but there's always something to worry about. But there's always something to be proud of, too. There's something to be happy for. Even if it's for nothing else, it's that we're alive. Right? It's that we're here. It's that we made it. We made it this far. You know how people say we didn't come this far to come this far? Well, when you're moving forward, if you're alive, that means you're supposed to be moving forward. It doesn't mean don't stop and smell the roses, don't stop and appreciate the moment. It means appreciate the moment, stop and appreciate the moment, but be willing to go forward. And understand who you are as you step forward. Because you might have taken all the right steps and you might think, hey, at this point in my career, at this point in my life, at this point in my relationship, I'm here. But somebody else may not be there. They may not appreciate the moment. They may not appreciate you. They may have lost their way. They may not get it. Because we ask ourselves that question. I ask myself that question. If something's good for years upon years upon years, why is it strenuous now? If there's been nothing but good things that have happened, if one side's giving and taking, the other side's giving and taking, they're having fun, they're there for each other, they're sacrificing for each other, they're there for each other, then what's the problem? What's the issue? You have to be willing to ask others what's going on, and you have to be willing to accept answers that you don't agree with. My mom walked into a store before. Somebody was giving her a dirty look. She could feel the person looking at her that way. And she went up to the woman and she said, "What? Do we have a problem here? Do I know you?" And the woman said, "No, I don't know you. I just saw your face and I don't know what it is, but I don't like you. And I don't think I'm going to change my mind. I don't think it's going to change." That's one of the weirdest things to encounter, right? Somebody doesn't know you. They don't know anything about you. They've seen you for the first time ever, but they don't like you as soon as they see your face. But how do you move forward from that? Do you get a new face? Do you think that you're ugly? Do you think that you're, stupid or you're wrong or you shouldn't be who you are? No. What you do is, if you care about something enough, a person, a situation, you ask, what's going on? How do we move forward from here? How do we take each other's hands and move forward? And if somebody cares enough, they'll move forward with you. And if they don't, then they won't. But if they don't, then you move forward. Because if I know anything about my life, it's that I'm blatantly honest with myself. And when I haven't done anything wrong, I'm not going to sit there and apologize. I will listen, but I'm not going to sit there and apologize. I do what I can to help people. And I hope that people understand where I'm coming from. Because I always come from a place where I believe in God, I have a good heart, I care, I love, I don't discriminate, I'm not prejudiced, I'm not racist, I'm not sexist. I want people to be loved every day. So you always hope that people see that in you, see the good in you, and only the good in you. And then we move forward. And understand that if people aren't willing to move forward with you, sometimes you have to take the rest of this journey by yourself. They might have only supposed to have been part of a piece of your journey, but not your whole journey. Don't put yourself in quicksand and don't start walking backward just because somebody refuses to go with you. When you know that you have to take a step forward and somebody doesn't want to take a step with you, maybe it's because they were only meant to be all the way up to that point of your journey. And then their journey stopped there with you. It's okay. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I ask you all to be honest with yourselves, honest with others, and to be okay with the fact that sometimes things happen Sometimes relationships end, and sometimes moments go away because of nothing you did or nothing you didn't do. It's just done. And you'll be okay. With that being said, those are the ingredients to success, proudly brought to you by Avicoli's. I implore you to go over to Avicoli's every Tuesday through Sunday, and of course to come out and see us for our monthly Liverpool Warriors broadcast that we do exclusively at Avicoli's. We'll see you out there every single month, and you can go out there today at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. And of course, you can also go online to myavicolis.com, and you can go to 315-622-5100 on your phone, 315-622-5100, and you can order for takeout, delivery, and catering. Tune in live to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all /WakeUpCallDT. Also on Facebook.com /LiveNowDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com. Once we go live, check us out in the archives, like the Tom Wistrcill interview for the Big Sky and Mike Aresco from the American. Those will both be up today and available for you. Head to Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, MixLR, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podbean, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Audible, and more. All you have to do to find Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on any one of these outlets is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in their search engine bar, or search one word, Wake Up Call DT, and you'll find us on all of those. Thanks to our Central and Upstate New York partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Honda City of Liverpool, as well as Millhouse Market, Victory Sports Medicine, Orthopedics, Pizza Van, Chick-fil-A Cicero, and Chick-fil-A Clay, and the home that it has the greatest plates that you're going to find for the price. Mother's Cupboard, 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. Not just the Fritz Odd, but everything that they have to offer. Mother's Cupboard brings you in feeling hungry and has you leave feeling more than full of the good stuff. Mother's Cupboard, 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York, and make sure you head out to them. Open daily from 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month, all throughout the year. The Lemoyne Dolphins join you. Wednesdays at 9 a.m. is Dolphin Time, so we'll hang out with the Dolphins there every first and third Wednesday, like coming up tomorrow with AD and DT, Athletics Director Bob Beretta, and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, we have the Dolphin Dive, where we dive into stories from coaches, student athletes, as well as alumni, future Dolphins, and administration. The Dolphin Dive comes to you every second and fourth Wednesday. Once again, AD and DT every first and third Wednesday, and the Dolphins are with us every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We look forward to you joining us live, as well as going to youtube.com /WakeUpCallDT and clicking subscribe. You can also go to the Lemoyne tab on WakeUpCallDT.com, and for more information on your Dolphins, go to LemoyneDolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Marywood University Pacers. It's Pacer Pride all throughout the year, with Pacer Pride specials airing every Friday right around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, where we speak with student athletes, administration, and coaches about what it means to be a Pacer and what Pacers can do. Pacer Pride coming to you. You can find it on the Marywood tab on WakeUpCallDT.com, as well as by subscribing to our youtube.com /WakeUpCallDT channel. For more information on your Marywood Pacers, go to MarywoodPacers.com. The Bryan and Stratton Bobcats of Syracuse are with us from Bryan and Stratton College in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the Bobcats. For Bobcat Buzz every single month, we have specials with the Bobcats coming to you in this Bobcat Buzz. You can hang out with them. We've had our breaking news exclusive first conversation before anybody else knew the coach of the men's basketball team. Clay Gagan Sherman joined me as Danny Frasina was leaving the men's basketball team. We did the exclusive interview there with him at PB&J's Lunchbox. The exclusive news release about Clay Gagan-Sherman getting the job as men's basketball head coach was at Mother's Cupboard. We were with Tay Baker on site, on location at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse, as we broke the news on him becoming the women's basketball head coach now for the future. We sat down with Nick Dimitrievsky, the men's soccer head coach, athletic director, and national champion. We sat down with Alex Grigorita on and off campus at Cafe Kubal and at Bryan and Stratton to speak on his world of women's soccer as their head coach, as well as the assistant athletic director and a national champion. We just sat down with Sean Peak, who's starting the baseball program in its inaugural season coming up at Bryan and Stratton College. We've had roundtable discussions and so much more will be coming up with the Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats. Find it at the BSC SYR tab on WakeUpCallDT.com, as well as by subscribing to our YouTube channel on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And for more information, go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. I want to thank you all for joining us from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios today. Big shout out to all of my fantastic guests inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Marcus Sales, CBA and Syracuse alum, rejoining the show after a lot of people haven't heard from Marcus Sales in a while since he finished up playing football. So great to hear from him. And a big shout out to his family, being a dad, and a big shout out to his son on the AAU circuit this summer, and of course to his entire family. Mike Aresco joining us for the American Athletic Conference edition of our Commissioner Central series, talking about the strength and evolution of the American Athletic, as well as NIL, the transfer portal, and the future of collegiate athletics. Then we were joined by Tom Wistrcill of the Big Sky Conference, who was here at our Commissioner Central series as well, giving his thoughts on the bigger picture of NIL, transfer portal, and the future of collegiate athletics, as well as speaking with us on the strength of the Big Sky and the evolution of the Big Sky Conference. So 2 more pieces to our series of Commissioner Central, talking with commissioners and executive directors from around the country about their conferences, as well as the bigger picture items of the future of collegiate athletics. A big shout out to Marcus Sales. A big thanks to Avicoles for the ingredients to success. And a big thanks to you for being a part of the show. Find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. And of course, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. Know who you are, apologize when needed, and don't when you don't have to. I'll talk